Right now, let's talk to the Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party, Paul Scully. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's incredible how mooted the official celebrations are going to be today of a Brexit Day. The entire general election was about Brexit for the Conservative Party. Boris Johnson's leadership election was all about getting Brexit done. And yet on the day, he's not going to be at the rally in Parliament Square. No big public celebrations. Why not? Is he embarrassed about it now?
No, I don't think he's embarrassed about it. He's making a speech that's going to be aired later on tonight, just before we actually finally leave at 11 p.m. And it is a fantastic day. But I think it'll be each to themselves to work out how they celebrate, how they respond. I mean, it was interesting to hear Jeremy Corbyn's statement when he was talking about we've got to be outward looking. Well, thank you for catching up, because that's what you and I and others have been saying for a number of times. Brexit is not about closing in on itself. It's totally the opposite. It's looking to the world. And Boris has just injected optimism and hope and a sense of drive over the last few months to get us over the line, which is where we are today.
And what would you say to those who say, look, we're not going to get a trade deal with the EU by the end of this year. We're not going to get a trade deal, despite what the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, had to say at his meetings yesterday, in the next year with the United States. And if we do, then we're just going to have to be, living on chlorinated chicken and selling off the NHS, all those claims we've heard for the last few years. That a lot of the things that are supposedly the practical, tangible economic benefits of Brexit aren't actually going to materialise anytime soon.
Well, I hope that gone are the days when we are just concentrating on what we can't do, what we don't want, and all the negativity. It's not going to be easy. We've got, as you heard David Davis say, that there's a lot of decisions that we are having to make as an independent nation now. But we're ready for that, and we're up for that. And we've seen from the last few months about how Boris got the withdrawal agreement open again when everybody said you can't do it. We've got the deal over the line, and now here we are at a point where a lot of people didn't think that we were going to get to. And I've every confidence that we can do that trade deal by the end of the year, because we're not starting with a blank sheet of paper. We are starting in perfect regulatory alignment. And if there's a will there, then we can drive there. We are now not talking about whether we're leaving. We're talking about how we're leaving, and we are moving in the same direction. Even if there's going to be debate about how we go along that path, we are all going along the same path. Finally, what a great day.
Now, there was a lot of concern at the fact that what the battles and the divisions that have happened. And again, I think the divisions have been far greater since the Brexit vote than during the campaign in 2016. And that one of the problems was that the Vote Leave campaign basically left the battlefield, and everyone just assumed, foolish ass, that there would be losers' consent, as there has been for every other referendum and every other election in this country for a century or so. That actually the Remainers carried on fighting. Well, Ramonas as they became, Remainers, people who had a perfectly good reason to vote as they did and just simply differ in their opinion and should be respected. But they carried on the fight. Is there any concern that Ramonas in Parliament or outside Parliament are going to continue the fight? Because I detect that they're already gearing up for a battle over whatever trade deal we get, and already gearing up, trying to stop us from striking out with the sort of freedoms that we want as an independent nation state, tying us to regulation, tying us to the customs union, keeping freedom of movement and all of those things. Is it important that people stay, I don't know if I want a better word, vigilant?
Oh, absolutely. No, for sure. But there is, I think you are right that the Leave campaign, of which I was one, did leave the battlefield, as you described it, over that summer, which was, a fundamental mistake. And there were mistakes along the way, but we're in uncharted waters. The fundamental difference now is that we have a parliament that better reflects the people. That general election really did unlock a really positive future in terms of working out our future a relationship with the EU. And so that means that we shouldn't, I can't see any reason why we're going to get into any of the sticky situations that we've had over the last 2.5 years, with the tail being able to wag the dog, with people being able to make up procedure as they go along in the Commons. Indeed, you heard the Speaker make a very important announcement yesterday saying that that's just not going to happen. And so it's not going to be easy. We've got a lot of difficult decisions to make, but I think most people, the vast majority of people in Parliament, reflect people's wishes, and we should get this done.
Just finally, where are you going to be at 11 p.m. tonight?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm either going to be in a TV studio or I'm going to have a drink in my hand somewhere in London.
Let's speak to the leader of the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage. Good morning to you. Happy Brexit Day.
Good morning. Absolutely. So I popped into a pub in Westminster last night.
How unlike you.
And there was a gang of people in there, and they'd come up from Hastings in Sussex to lobby their MP. And they were all chanting, "One more sleep." I thought that was really rather wonderful. And I keep hearing and seeing media stories about how much sadness there is. There's a lot of joy out there today, believe you me.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of talk also about people shouldn't be triumphalists. They shouldn't be rubbing Remainers' noses in it and shouldn't be celebrating publicly. What do you say to that?
Well, what about a tosh? I mean, firstly, this is a significant moment in our history. Arguably, it's the most significant constitutional change and positional change for us in the world since Henry VIII took us out of the Treaty of Rome. So the occasion should be marked because it's that historic and that significant. And why shouldn't people celebrate? Because something remarkable has happened. The entire establishment did not want Brexit to even be discussed, let alone have a referendum, let alone deliver it. And it's happening. And why? Because people would not be bullied. And whatever the faults in our country, what happens at 11 o'clock tonight is a remarkable victory for democracy.
And in terms of the divisions, in terms of how this nation has been split apart, a lot of people pointing out, actually, maybe we were divided beforehand, but we didn't talk about it. And perhaps we didn't know how divided the nation was until that vote. But the bitterness and the rancour that has happened, not just between Remainers and Leavers, but within each people's families, among friendship groups, in offices, that this has happened. Certainly in the House of Commons, we've seen it. Do you regret that? And who do you think's mostly at fault for that?
Well, firstly, there's nothing new in this. Think back to the strike in the mid-'80s. Families were divided, communities were divided. Think about any election where one family supports the Labour Party, the other supports the Conservatives, or whatever it might be. Division, difference of opinion, it's what differentiates us from the animals. It's how democracy, it's how politics works. But in this particular case, the reason there has been this division over 3.5 years is dead simple. There is a principle by which our democracy operates. It's called loser's consent. You lose an election, you may not like it, but you accept the result. For the first time in our history, a whole group of people, headed up, I have to say, by former Prime Ministers Major and Blair, refused, said that the Leave side had won because of Russia, said the Leave side had won because of lies, and the division has come from a total refusal to accept the result by some very senior people in our country who should have known better.
Now, you were not someone who was very keen, or certainly not on Theresa May's Brexit deal. It's one of the reasons you set up the Brexit Party, winning the European elections last May, and obviously putting in train a series of actions which led to Boris Johnson becoming Conservative Party leader and perhaps winning that election last December. You don't like Boris Johnson's deal very much either. When he says we've got Brexit done, do you think this is Brexit done?
Oh, the deal itself shocking. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it is Mrs May's deal. There's very, very little difference in this deal to her deal. But what is different is the withdrawal agreement that's gone through Parliament. And what is crucially different is the promise Boris Johnson made just before the election, unexpectedly to some, that we would not have regulatory alignment and that whatever happened, we would leave and end transition in 2020. Now, to be fair to Boris Johnson, I saw that and I said, you know what? If that's what he's going to say, I cannot stand Brexit Party candidates against Conservative MPs. And I stood down in over 300 seats. And to be fair to him, ever since that moment, he keeps on saying the same thing. Indeed, the front page of the Times today says the Prime Minister is aiming for a Canada-style trade deal. Well, I tell you what, that's another cork I'm going to pop tonight, because that's exactly what I've always wanted. I've always wanted, from the 27 years ago when I began this, I've always wanted a trade relationship, cooperation, reciprocity, being a good neighbour, but not being bound by EU rules. And if Boris Johnson keeps his promises, I will be thrilled.
Now, there's celebrations tonight. No bonging Big Ben. Not allowed fireworks, I think. Are you allowed music at your rally tonight? You're a bit disappointed by how much the Prime Minister and the government want to sort of moot the celebrations tonight.
Well, I think everybody has done their best to try and allow this moment to pass without it being marked at all. But the hell with that. We're going to have a big get-together in Parliament Square tonight, starting at 9 o'clock, going on till just after 11. I know you're coming there too, Julia, and I think there's going to be a very big crowd. And if they won't play Big Ben's bongs, well, we will through our loudspeaker system. So don't worry, it's going to be it'll be a moment in history, and it will be the iconic picture around the world will be Parliament Square tonight at 11 o'clock.
And just finally, people listening to this who voted Remain and really don't think this is a good idea, they may accept a democratic vote, but they really think this is a really bad decision. We're leaving our EU, our biggest trading partner. We're going out to the world. We're not going to be able to negotiate the trade deals we want. We're going to have to give in to the United States on stuff we don't want. We're going to have to get the worst bits of the EU and not the best bits. What do you say to people like that today who think that we've made a horrible mistake as a country?
The one thing I would say is this. Our future will now be in our hands. Whether we get things right, whether we get things wrong, we will decide through the laws that we make and the people we hire and fire. These big decisions will not get taken somewhere else. And I think that befits a great country like ours, and I'm confident we can do a damn sight better than we have in the last few years.
We're going to talk in just a few moments with the founder of Wetherspoons, Tim Martin, of course, a long-time Brexiteer. First up, though, let's talk to Labour's Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, MP Peter Dowd, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Peter.
Morning, Julia.
A very happy Brexit day to you, sir.
Ditto.
Do you feel happy about today?
Well, you know, we are where we are, but people made their decision in 2016. We've had 3 years of, I don't know, negotiations, discussions, arguments, fights, punch-ups, call it what you will. There's been a general election, and we now need to get the best out of a situation that many people don't like. Many people do like, but we've just got to push on as best as we can.
And do you think that people like me who want to celebrate tonight and mark this occasion, do you think it's gloating or rubbing noses in it, or do you think it's fair after a best part of 3.5, almost 4 years of fighting, that we're entitled to raise a glass or two of English sparkling wine tonight?
Well, we live in a democracy, and you're entitled to party whenever you want, Julia, and good luck to you on that. I mean, and I don't think it's been the last 3 or 4 years. I think this whole debate has gone on in some fashion since we joined the European Union, and we've reached a turning point that people voted for, and I think we just have to try and move on and get the best for the country overall.
And
now,
is the Labour Party going to move on and accept Brexit and hope to get a really good trade deal and get what people voted for? You know, you're not going to agree with everything Boris Johnson does. A lot of people who voted for him don't agree with everything Boris Johnson does, including myself. But in terms of getting what the British people have voted for in terms of a good trade deal, but not staying in the customs union, not continuing free movement, does the Labour Party and the people running for the leadership, do you all actually accept that is the will of the British people now?
Well, I think it is the will of the British people, and I don't want to get into all the arguments we had about fix this and votes were rigged, or this happened, or that happened, or those lies were told, or this was exaggerated, and so on and so on. I think we have to put that behind us and move on. And in that regard, we're going to be, in effect, still in the European Union until the end of this year during this transition period. And now is the opportunity for the government to deliver what it said it was going to do, which is a good deal. Now, I'm not going to try and rein in anyone's party in regards to this. Let's see what comes out of those deals. I'm not even going to comment about do I think it's going to be a good or a bad deal by the end of the year. I'm not even going to comment on the fact that it ordinarily takes 4 to 5 years to negotiate a deal. Let's just see what deal the government can get, which is going to be of benefit to the country's workers' rights, environmental rights, etc. Well, it's now down to the government to deliver what they said they were going to deliver, a good deal. And we will all be waiting for them to do that. And I think the public will be waiting for them to do that as well.
OK, Peter Dowd, MP, Labour's Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury. Very much appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Let's talk to someone very much on the other side of the Brexit debate now. Founder of JD Wetherspoons, leading Brexiteer campaigner, Tim Martin. Good morning to you, Tim. Happy Brexit Day.
Thank you very much, and yourself, Julia.
I believe we are going to be together celebrating tonight in Parliament Square, along with some 20 or 30,000 other people. I've been talking to a lot of my guests this morning. We've been told, we shouldn't rub everyone's noses in it. We shouldn't be gloating. But it's not gloating, is it? This is about celebrating a hard-fought battle.
Yes, gloating doesn't probably pay off. I think it's really about trying to get some some positive messages across, some messages of reconciliation, a few ideas for the future, and a general note of optimism. I heard the previous speaker saying it all depends on a deal. It doesn't depend on a deal. The very key thing in this whole issue is, and what we know from history, is that if you increase the level of democracy in a country, you always get a good result. So I'm very worried that people think that it's a very statist approach to think that you need government to agree a 20,000-page document with another country or another continent to do well. That's not what history shows. It doesn't depend on a deal. It depends on democracy.
And we had so many warnings before the 2016 referendum and since, again and again and again, about how terrible it's going to be for our economy, the job losses, that the NHS is going to collapse. I mean, everything could possibly happen. And pretty much none of those warnings have come true. And yes, we've had a slowdown in growth, but so has the Eurozone. And indeed, a lot of that probably down to uncertainty rather than anything else. You're someone who built a business from scratch, who's a successful businessman. What's your message to people who are concerned right now that, well, look, we're going to be maybe facing difficulty trading, possibly tariffs, who knows, possibly just sort of the non-tariff difficulties of a lot of paperwork and the like. If we, as we leave the EU at the end of the year, when the transition period is completely over, and people who are worried that it is going to affect our economy and worried that it's going to affect business and it's going to affect trade. What's your message to them today?
I would say look at history. We were told by the same group of people if we didn't join the euro, we'd be in terrible trouble. And the economy's done much better over 20 years or so than the eurozone economy as a whole. We were told in 2016 that just voting leave would cause a loss of 500,000 jobs by now. We've created 1 million jobs. There have been very rare examples in our history where we've been as successful as to create 1 million jobs. Government revenues tax revenues are at a high. Company profits are at a high. Household incomes at a high. Yes, we can always do better. Yes, there's always going to be some slowdowns from time to time, but we're doing well. And if you really want the proof, look around the world. Look how successful Japan became when it became a democracy, or look how successful North America as a democracy has been. Singapore, lots of examples. Democracy always works, and the EU, unfortunately, for our cousins on the continent, is becoming less and less democratic. It's a no-brainer. We're going to do better than we would by staying in the EU.
Tim Martin, founder of JD Wetherspoons, a Brexiteer. Thank you very much. Can I just ask you, finally, you've been doing an awful lot of sort of celebrating, and pushing for the case for Brexit. You've been at a policy in your many pubs around the country of bringing in non-EU wines and beers and the like to show that actually there is a whole global network out there that we could be tapping into. Any special offers in your pubs today?
Well, we're extending the hand of friendship and saying let's be friends. So some Brexiteers think I've gone over the top, but it's mostly European beers and spirits from Germany and France and Poland and so on. So yes, I can't advertise too much, but we're celebrating with European beers and the fantastic British Real Ale Ruddles as well.
Wonderful. Other beers and other pubs are available. Right now, though, let's talk to former Attorney General and former leading Remainer, Dominic Grieve, who kindly joins us now. Good morning to you and a happy Brexit Day, Dominic.
Good morning and a happy Brexit Day to you, Julia.
Thank you very much. Now, look, just to get some background, of course, you're a former Attorney General, a former Conservative MP. You lost the Tory whip over the Brexit issue, ended up standing as an independent in your Beaconsfield constituency, but lost to the Tory candidate, now out of office. Do you regret making the stand that you did? And do you regret losing your seat and, well, everything that's happened subsequently?
No, I don't regret taking the stand that I did. I'm absolutely sure in my mind I did the right thing. I believe Brexit is very damaging to the United Kingdom, as will become apparent with time. I fear that. I hope very much I may be wrong. And therefore it was the right thing to do to try to argue for a second referendum, which is, of course, the reason why I ended up standing as an independent. So no, I don't have any regrets at all as to what I've done in this matter.
Okay.
And it's worth bearing in mind that this evening we are celebrating, or people will celebrate leaving the EU, but rather bizarrely, we're celebrating embarking on an 11-month period at least when Britain's sovereignty will be probably at its lowest pitch at any time since the Middle Ages, because we will be bound by a whole series of rules which we can no longer influence and no longer have the equality with our fellow members of the EU to influence. It's really when we get through that it's going to be possible to start making an assessment as to whether we've done the right thing or not.
But the doomsayers, like you said, it would be terrible if we just voted for Brexit. A lot of people were saying that. If we, the founder of Wetherspoons, Tim Martin, was saying, even if we didn't join the euro all those years ago, and we were told
I certainly didn't argue.
No, I know you didn't that, but we've had so much doom and gloom predictions, and none of them have come forward so far. Even including the predictions that Boris Johnson wouldn't be able to do a deal with the EU that was better than what Theresa May had got, which most Brexiteers like myself thought was a terrible deal. And yet each time you've been proved wrong. Do you think there's going to come a point, let's say in 5 years' time, when Britain is booming, as I strongly believe we will be, and moving ahead with great trade deals with the EU and the United States, Australia, Canada, everything like that. If we are in that point, as I strongly believe we will be, will there come a point when you'll say, fair enough, I was wrong, and I accept that the British people did get this right?
Yes, I can see that could happen. I can see that the circumstance might arise in 5, 10, 15 years' time when people looking at Britain's economic growth, its relative performance to our European partners, and our general state of well-being and security could argue we took the right decision to leave. But it's certainly not possible to make that evaluation now. And as I say, one of the things about politics is that we politicians get sent to Westminster. We're not wizards. We can't foresee the future, but we are actually sent to Westminster to try to make some objective evaluation of what a policy decision is likely to create or produce further down the line in future. And that's what we have to do. And I've made mine. And my view, which goes back a long way, is that the EU, although it is a far from perfect institution and has many problems associated with it, membership of it for the United Kingdom was very much to our national advantage, and the sovereignty issue, which is often raised in respect of it, is as a look. My view is that that's just really wrong, because ultimately we are fettered by all kinds of international obligations, and the idea that countries enjoy perfect sovereignty or that we recover some form of perfect sovereignty by leaving the EU is completely mistaken.
Well, no, of course, we and again, we can be individuals and agree to contracts at work or a marriage contract which limits what we can freely do, but those are freely entered into. Do you not accept, even today, even on Brexit Day, that the handing over of the powers that was done by the British Parliament to the EU in terms of our borders, in terms of the rules we could make in our country, in terms of voting rights and things, the British Parliament, elected members like yourself, you didn't have the right to give away our rights and our powers to another body. And it was simply us wanting to take those rights back so that we get the final say on what happens in our country.
I can see the arguments that are put forward, and indeed I was an advocate of holding a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty when it came along. But ultimately, our constitution in this country is that the Parliament is sovereign. That's where the sovereignty lies, in the House of the Queen in Parliament.
The people are sovereign, Dominic. The people are sovereign.
Well, the exercise of sovereignty in this country comes through the election by the people of parliaments. And that is indeed how finally we've come to leave the EU. So I think if you stick to a sovereignty of the people, if I may say, that's rather a French concept. And on the whole, it tends to end rather badly. We're very fortunate to have parliamentary democracy in this country, and it does mean that people change their parliaments on a quinquennial basis every 5 years at limit, and have the opportunity of doing that. But the decision-making otherwise normally rests with Parliament. And to argue, as you have just suggested, that there have been surrenders of sovereignty in some sort of illegitimate way over the years when we've been in the EU or previously the EEC is just not correct.
I will have to agree to differ with you on that one. Now, you stood as an independent after going out, losing the Tory whip, and you then lost to a Tory candidate who was promising to deliver Brexit. Obviously, you accept the verdict of the British people on that front. Do you accept that now that this is the will, as I say, of the British people, and that we should make the best of it?
Yes, of course we've got to make the best of it. I entirely accept that. There's no point in somebody like myself standing on the sides, acting as a Cassandra. I've expressed my view about the risks which I see and the problems I see coming from Brexit and why I don't think it's to our national advantage. But now a Brexit is happening, unless or until some decision were made that people wanted something different, we have got to make the best of operating outside the EU.
Okay.
I completely accept that, and there's no point in banging on about something which will be gone, because we can't go back in on the terms which we previously had, which were very advantageous to the United Kingdom, and a sort of bit of a miracle, really, the product of Mrs. Thatcher and John Major's brilliance.
Okay, let's just come up today. I'm going to be in Parliament Square, going to a lot of big parties, partying last night as well, ahead of Brexit Day, Brexit Eve celebrations. What are you going to be doing at 11 p.m. tonight? How are you going to be marking this momentous moment in our history?
I'll be marking anything, because I don't think it's as momentous as you think, because of the point I made earlier about...
Oh, Dominic, your phone line's disappeared. Sorry.
But I'm going out to have supper with friends. And I shall be with them, I suspect, at 7 p.m. this evening.
Michael Gove is Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and Minister for No-Deal Brexit Planning. And he joins us now. Happy Brexit Day, Michael.
Happy Brexit Day, Julia.
It is a happy day, certainly for 52% of us. But do you think today is going to be the end of the divisions, the ends of the bitterness and the rancour and the fighting, and the end of the attempts to stop this from going ahead, and we can actually move forward and unite once again?
I hope so. Actually, I think, on balance, that happened at the general election. So we know, you've charted it in detail, that there were 3.5 difficult years after the referendum when there were some people, sincere but I think wrong, who were trying to overturn the decision. They thought it was a historic mistake. And then the British people at the general election said, do you know what? We want that vote respected. We want Brexit done. And it's been notable since then that many of those who'd argued against Brexit and who tried to frustrate it have graciously acknowledged it should happen. And now the task is to bring people together and to recognise that while, of course, we respect how people felt and voted, the spirit behind some of those who argued for Remain, the idea that we should remain engaged with Europe and open to the world, well, we can do that while also being in control of our future, which was what Brexit is all about.
Well, at 11 p.m, while the champagne and English sparkling wine corks are all still popping, the clock starts ticking on the transition period. I've just been speaking to Dominic Grieve, of course, a leading campaigner against Brexit over the last few years, who says, actually, we're going to lose a lot of our sovereignty over this transition period. We're going to still be, outside the EU, we're going to still be governed by a lot of the EU's rules, but with no say over those rules. How confident are you that we are going to see a trade deal by the end of December? And how confident are you the Prime Minister is going to get what he wants, according to the front page of the Times today, which is a Canada-style trade deal with Brussels?
100% confident.
100% confident?
Yes. I think that Dominic, it's after Dominic in government. Oh, sorry. And he's a very good lawyer and a very sincere pro-EU figure. But it is the case that Dominic would have wanted to keep us in the EU and subject to their laws, their rules, their procedures. We're leaving now, and that means that we will be in control. One of the ways in which we're in control is that we can conclude a trade agreement with the EU on terms that suit us both. The EU's negotiated with Canada a trade deal which works for both parties. We want one which is similar but not identical, and we want to ensure that we have no tariffs and no quotas on goods, and we also want a good relationship on services. The EU, Michel Barnier and others have said that such a deal is entirely doable, and the EU is set up, configured to make that work. So with goodwill on all sides, then we can press ahead and we can get that deal which will work in everyone's interest.
And what are we willing to give up in return? Lots of concerns about our fishing rights. Now, it may not be of a big issue for an awful lot of people, especially people listening in cities nowhere near the coast, but this has been a really sort of difficult issue for the European Union and Britain over the years, hasn't it?
Well, we're approaching these talks on the basis that both sides benefit from free trade, but both sides, well, we're sovereign equals. We've got our own laws, we've got our own legal orders. We respect the fact that the EU says in order to have totally frictionless and unfettered access, you have to have the single market. Fair enough. There will, as a result of our being outside the single market, there will be a little bit of friction. We accept that. But at the same time, the EU has to accept that we're a sovereign equal. And when it comes to, example, access to our fishing waters, and this is just one of a number of issues, as an independent nation, we will regulate access to our fishing waters on our terms, not on anyone else's. That means there will be fishing opportunities for other countries, but it will be we who decide. And I think that's the important thing that I think most people get, but will be reinforced throughout this year, that you do not have to accept the terms that another bloc dictates in order to have a good relationship with it.
Well, among all the doom and gloom messages and forecasts we'd over the years, the Treasury estimated that after 15 years, if we do get this Canada-style model of almost sort of tariff-free trade in goods, but it does entail some border checks, after 15 years, the British economy will be 4.9% smaller than if we had remained in the EU. A, do you believe that? And B, if that is the case, will it still have been worth it?
Well, there are all sorts of economic projections that are made. They're useful tools.
By experts.
Indeed. They're useful tools, but they can't predict the future. The very distinguished American economist, J.K. Galbraith, Nobel Prize winner, said that they invested economic forecasting in order to give astrology a good name. Now, my own view is that economic forecasts are very helpful, and they can expose certain points and to take into account in the argument. But, you know, we can't predict next week, next month, next year. And the other thing is that these analyses are often done in isolation. They don't take into account the dynamic and beneficial effect of better regulation, and in particular of the things that Boris is doing in order to strengthen our economy. They don't take account of the fact that we will have better infrastructure linking north and south, improved schools, which will provide additional educational opportunity, and also, you know, some of the other economic interventions that will help the overlooked and undervalued communities of the Midlands and the North do better.
Well, given that this is such a momentous day in our history, something you fought for many years, and you've taken a lot of grief, a lot of criticism over the years for your stance on this, lost friendships with the former Prime Minister David Cameron and the like. Why are the celebrations being so muted tonight? Why is the Cabinet being basically told you have to turn up at Downing Street, you can't go to the parties, you can't be in Parliament Square, no Big Ben bonging, no fireworks, and we're just going to have a speech and a bit of a light show outside Number 10, a road that's not even a public road for people to see. Why isn't the government celebrating this momentous day in public with the rest of us?
Well, I think one of the things about government is that it's a job of work. People will be reflecting in different ways. Some people will have a glass or two during the course of the evening. I'll be in Dudley speaking to people there this evening, and that's because it's an important moment. We should celebrate the fact that we live in a vibrant democracy and that we are respecting the will of the people. But what's really important, what I think will be a cause for celebration, is using the new powers and responsibilities that we have in a good way. What I want to be able to do is to be able to celebrate the fact that in a year or in 2 years or in 3 years' time, as a result of taking back control, that our country is stronger, freer and better. So this is the beginning of a new chapter, as the Prime Minister said. And I think it's absolutely right that those who've waited so long for the democratic verdict to be respected should celebrate. I think we should thank those who contributed to this debate. But actually, some of the people whom I think we should thank most are the people who were originally arguing for Remain, but who put aside the badge of Leaver or Remainer in order to become Democrats. So if I'm going to raise a glass tonight, I will be in Dudley, and one of the people I'll be raising a glass to, even though he won't be there, is the very brave former Labour MP for Dudley North, Ian Austin,
yes.
Someone who wanted us to stay, but then said, the people have voted to leave. we must put their interests first.
Okay, and just finally, the transition period, it's not going to go on longer than the 31st of December this year. When we wake up on the morning of the 1st of January next year, we are going to be completely free of the EU, are we not?
We will be an independent country, and the EU's laws will no longer apply.
All right, just finally, I must ask you about the coronavirus. 83 Britons currently on a flight back from Wuhan, due to arrive at Bryce Norton RAF base around 1 o'clock today. Lots of concerns, though, that some 200 Britons wanted to leave Wuhan. Some were unable to do so because of family links and not being able to get their family members on the airplane. But others complaining they couldn't get to the airport. More than half an hour's drive away from the city centre, and no public transport, no taxis, a complete shutdown and lockdown of the city. Has Britain given enough help to those Britons who actually did want to leave the epicentre of the coronavirus?
We will do everything we can, consistent with the facts on the ground, which necessarily govern health security. We will do everything we can and continue to do everything we can in order to protect British nationals and their families, and to make sure that they can come home, and to make sure that they can be safe.
Let's talk to one of the architects of Brexit, the co-founder of the Leave.eu campaign, bad boy of Brexit himself, live from New Zealand. It's Arron Banks. Good morning to you and a happy Brexit Day to you.
Julia, how are you?
Very well indeed, having a very good time. Presumably, being so many hours ahead, you've already started the Brexit night celebrations.
Well, I'm starting to have a few beers, yeah. But I'm a good boy of Brexit now. You keep calling me a bad boy. I'm a good boy of Brexit. Come on.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who might differ on that front. How significant a day is this? How momentous a day is this for you?
I think it's massive. I mean, for us, it's been a battle that's been raging for nearly 4 years after the vote in June 2016, and it's just very satisfying on a personal level to get to the end position.
Are you going to be, accused of, you think of gloating, of rubbing Remainers' noses in it by celebrating? Or do you think that we've got a right, after all these years, to have a good old bash and a sing-song and a celebration?
Well, it's 47 years, isn't it, since we joined? And, I think we've got a perfect right to have a good gloat. And I'm certainly on the gloating end of the scale, as you know.
Now, there's been a lot of falling out between leavers. We had it between the Leave.eu campaign that you and Nigel Farage were part of, and the official Vote Leave campaign. No love lost between you guys and Dominic Cummings, and to a certain extent Boris Johnson as well. We've seen fallings out, even you and Nigel Farage falling out over whether or not to accept the Boris Brexit deal or not. Do you think that this is going to be a time when not just Brexiteers come back together, but the Remainers and Brexiteers come back together?
I'm not sure really you could describe it as a falling out. It's just a difference of opinion. I mean, we always believed that only the Conservative Party could deliver Brexit. And so we set about trying to change the Tory party from inside. I mean, you look at the 40 or so leading Remainers. I think you had Dominic Grieve on earlier on. 35 of them are gone, So I think it was really a case of going with the option that could deliver Brexit. And I do think that as we now reach that point where we leave, and then you've got a year to negotiate the trade deal, I think that the whip hand is back with the British now, because we've got a strong majority in Parliament for Brexit. But that tone has changed, and I think we can afford to play hardball.
There've been lots of allegations and accusations thrown at leavers generally, racist, xenophobic, this populism being apparently a very, very, very dirty word, and lots of specific allegations against you personally and your financing of and your reasons for financing the Leave.eu campaign. Is that all behind you now?
Well, I mean, the witch hunt that was being conducted, which is not dissimilar to the witch hunt that was in America. We saw both the Metropolitan Police and the National Crime Agency exonerate us completely. It was always just a witch hunt by people that were very unhappy about the result. So, from my perspective, I've moved on from it. I couldn't be more delighted, to be honest. I mean, it's felt like a very long 4 years of my life.
And do you think both the EU and the British establishment, do you think they've learnt the lessons of Brexit?
I think the Conservative Party have, and I think that's crucial. I mean, that majority came from areas of the country that wouldn't normally vote Conservative. And the challenge is going to be to deliver for those people, or as Boris says, levelling up, which is perhaps easier said than done. But I think there'll be a surge in infrastructure, but I think there's going to be a surge in national confidence as well. And I'm in New Zealand at the moment for 3 months or so, and it's a tiny little country on the edge of the world, 5 million people. It's got a brilliant legal system. It's doing really rather well, and it doesn't have to be part of a political union. So I think once we get our self-confidence back, we're going to fly.
And at 11 p.m. tonight, UK time, of course, that's midnight EU time, presumably. Yeah, it'll be back in the morning for you on Saturday. But how are you going to be celebrating tonight in New Zealand?
Well, I've got a bottle of Cloudy Bay and some friends. We've had a barbecue and just quite chilled for the way. For me, it's quiet satisfaction. We've had to put up with a lot of flack. The campaign has been controversial at times. We've overstepped the line at times. But I think overall we did a great job.
Christine Jardine is Liberal Democrat MP and joining me right now. Good morning to you, Christine. Happy Brexit Day.
Well, it might be happy for you, but I'm not going to indulge in the happy Brexit Day. It's not a good day for a lot of people in this country, so I'm not going to insult by saying happy Brexit Day. That's just nonsense.
Do you still not accept the verdict of the 2016 referendum, or indeed the December election?
Julia, I accept that it's raining outside. That doesn't make me happy about it. I accept it. It's done, but I'm not happy about it. I'm heartbroken to be leaving the European Union. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say anything else.
But why are you so heartbroken to be leaving a bureaucracy, an economic and political union? We're not going to be. But we're not going to be dragged out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We can still trade with and be friends with and go on holiday to and do business with our continental cousins. Nothing really changes there.
But you see, I hate to admit this, Julia, but I'm old enough to remember when you needed a passport to go to the continent, when there were trade barriers, when it wasn't as easy for companies. I often joke about the fact that my daughter and I came back from London once. We'd been to see Mamma Mia, and she'd bought the soundtrack, and we got in the car. We went to buy some bits and pieces for her bedroom, and I laughed afterwards. We were sitting outside IKEA in our Swedish car, having bought our Swedish furniture, listening to our Swedish music, and we thought it was good fun. But that was part of being part of feeling European.
But nothing
European
changes.
Things all around it. Julia,
nothing changes.
Everything will change for the next generation. They will not have the opportunities that you and I had. They will not have the freedom of movement, which ironically, and I never thought I'd hear myself quote it, ironically, Margaret Thatcher was in favour of. The single market was very much her view of Europe. It was very much a view of free trade, of building up our economy. And now we're going away from that.
Well, yeah, but there's a big difference between the single market and a political union, isn't there?
But we're losing the single market. That's what I'm concerned about, the opportunities for this generation that we had because of that fantastic single market, freedom of movement, the customs union. They're going to lose out in the opportunities that you and I had. They'll be cheated of them. They want them. They're the people who voted to stay in the European Union, the vast majority of them. And we're, a different generation denied them it. That is terrible.
Hey, younger people are more likely to be Remainers, we know that, but also younger people often don't come out and vote, so they didn't feel that strongly about it. Otherwise, they would have been out and casting their votes and making sure they had their say.
A lot of them were, and I don't think, we can't I'm not wanting to rehearse the arguments about Brexit. What I'm saying is we have another year. As a politician, I want us to get through that year and not crash off the cliff at the end of it because the hardline Brexiteers have decided that, you just don't. You get through the transition agreement and then you leave without a deal anyway. Because at the moment, all we've got is a withdrawal agreement. We don't have any agreement going forward. We don't have a future trading bill. That's what we need to focus on now. And frankly, I think we've lost something which was an important part of our lives for 40 years.
Okay.
We were European.
We are still European. We're still from the continent. Can I just ask a question I asked Dominic Grieve a little bit earlier?
Yeah.
Is there going to come a point when, say, 5 years' time, when the economy is booming, when we've got plenty of free access to go and travel in the rest of the EU, and we're making decisions for ourselves, we've got an accountable democratic government, and things are booming, is there going to come a point where you will say, OK, you know what, I was worried, but I've been proved wrong, and Britain can not just survive but thrive outside the EU? Do you think there'll ever come a point when you would say that?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, Julia, so I don't know if there will ever come up. What there will never come a point is that I will say that we didn't make a mistake in staying as close to our European partners as we could. The world now is not about being small. It's about being part of something bigger. The world is interdependent. And what worries me is that, we haven't recognised that. But what we have to do now is make sure that we minimise the risk, that we do the best for the next generation that we can in the circumstances, and we get on with making the best of, for me, a bad situation,
okay,
and stay as close to Europe as we can.
All right, and just
Where we'll be
finally,
in 5 years' time, I don't know.
OK, just finally, it's amazing how many Remainers can predict bad things are going to happen by 5 years' time, but apparently can't when it might be good. At 11 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be in Parliament Square celebrating with lots of 10 or 20 or 30,000 other Brexiteers. What are you going to be doing at 11 p.m. tonight?
I will either be in one of two places. I will either be at the Vigil in Edinburgh, which I'm still
Vigil,
or if I can finish answering your question, Julia. For a lot of people, you might find that amusing. Julia, you might find it amusing, but for a lot of people who live in this country and who contribute to this country, this is a very difficult day. They are European citizens,
and they're still
not UK
welcome here
citizens.
and welcome to stay here.
Yeah, but let's not patronising them by laughing at how they might be feeling today, Julia.
I was laughing at the idea of attending a vigil when we are marking a great day in our democratic history.
For me, it's not. For me, it's a sad day.
Okay.
It's a sad day because we've turned our back on a marvellous opportunity.
All right. Well, I'm going to be
on a vision of European togetherness, and I think we will lose at the end of the day. But my job now is to work to make the best of it. And I'm not laughing at people who are celebrating.
Okay.
And please don't laugh at people who are finding this difficult.
I'm laughing at the idea of a vigil, and well, Christy Jardine, I will be raising a glass to you and all of those at your vigil at 11 o'clock tonight. I'm going to raise a glass to everyone here in Britain and our European cousins as well as we mark this wonderful day.